While 2020 will be defined as the year of the pandemic, 2020 is also the year of the woman. Women have dominated the global scene, from the likes of Kamala Harris, the first female vice president of the United States, to 15-year-old Gitanjali Rao, the youngest person who happens to be a girl to grace the cover of the Times. Women are true architects of society and empower and enable generations to come. With there being millions of micro entrepreneurs and self-help groups, the coming together of like-minded women has been the backbone of society and development. Today's panel brings together women leaders who are transforming the CSR space and have empowered millions of women towards livelihoods. So please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists for our session, Empowering Women for Better Society and Economy, Mainstreaming Successful Models. Our moderator for this panel is Dr. Geeta Bora, founder and director at Sferul Foundation. Dr. Bora has done her PhD in computer science and has 13 years of IT experience and is also an awardee of the Samaj Sevi Ratan. She's a technocrat, social activist, social entrepreneur, and an author. She worked as one of the core IT team members under Padma Bhushan, Dr. Vijay Bhatkar, also known as the father of Indian supercomputer for educational softwares. She's worked in the US for 9 years, but in 2016 moved back to India with the thought to work for social issues and started the foundation, which rigorously works for women empowerment, malnourishment, gender equality, education, and livelihood. Lovely to have you, ma'am. Our first speaker today is Ms. Shalini Singh, Chief Corporate Communications and Sustainability, CSR and Skill Development Centers, and Chairman and Managing Trustee of TPCDT. Ms. Singh is an integrated communications professional with 25 years of experience in industries such as power, IT, telecom, textile, and garments, and has been heading corporate communications at Tata Power since 2004. Under her leadership, the company has won many national and international awards in communications, CSR, sustainability, and skilling, with recent ones being the ICSI CSR Award 2018. She has represented causes like resource conservation, women empowerment, and business responsibility at various national and international forums. Lovely to have you. Up next, we have Ms. Vinita Grover, Head CSR and Sustainability at Apollo Tyres. Ms. Grover has over 20 years of experience in the development sector. She started her career as a volunteer and later pursued a postgraduate in special education for differently abled children. She holds a master's degree in management and information systems from Manchester in United Kingdom. She specialized in change and strategic program management. She's also completed a program in climate change policy and public health from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's worked over a decade with one of the UK's biggest children's charities, NSPCC, and then moved back to India. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. Up next, we have Ms. Maya Vengarikar, COO of the Director Marketing and Communications at CRISIL Foundation. Ms. Maya leads the CRISIL Foundation, and in her current role as Chief Operating Officer, she oversees their CSR initiatives pertaining to financial inclusion, women's empowerment, environment conservation, and education. She joined CRISIL in 2002, gaining domain expertise in ratings, culminating in her role as head of the business development. Her next assignment as Senior Director of Marketing and Investor Outreach saw her driving initiatives to establish CRISIL's thought leadership with market participants, investors, and regulatory bodies. Lovely to have you join us, ma'am. For our final speaker, we have Ms. Sangeetha Takral, Head CSR and Sustainability at Diageo India. Ms. Takral is a seasoned and agile professional with over 17 years of multi-sectoral and multi-dimensional global experience in managing communication, marketing, and sustainability portfolios in the corporate sector. In her current role, she heads CSR and sustainability at Diageo, a global leader in the beverage alcohol sector. Prior to this engagement, she's also worked with CAF India, British High Commission, IBM, Fidelity, and NIIT. Lovely to have you joining us, Ms. Takral. I would once again like to remind all our panelists that this session will run till 6:45 p.m. Please do reserve some time in the end for Q&A with our audience. Over to you, Dr. Bora.
Yeah, thank you, Yamini. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for investing your time with us. My name is Dr. Geeta Bora, and I'm the founder of Sferul Foundation. Today, it's my honor and privilege to moderate 4 eminent panelists who have worked a lot for women empowerment. Today we will be discussing empowering women for better society and economy. We all keep hearing about the need of women empowerment, making them self-reliant. United Nations is having a goal of achieving 100% gender equity by 2030 and also running a very wonderful initiative called Planet 5050. In this panel discussion, we will also get a glimpse of where we really stand in 2020. What are the challenges and successful models for achieving this goal, and how CSR and business can be the catalyst? So let's start this discussion. And I would like to start first with Shalini. Shalini, how you think local micro enterprises contribute in empowering women? As you have worked a lot in this sector, if you can tell us what are the challenges of women-led enterprises, and it will be great if you share some successful models with us. We cannot hear Shalini.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Bora, and a very good evening to all of you. For the micro enterprise model, there are many success stories. But let me start with the challenges that we've seen in the past 8 to 10 years that women micro enterprise face. There is a challenge of scaling the enterprises and the finances to scaling the enterprises. The second part is that the collateral that most loans, requirement ask for is a major issue, because that's not something that uh, the women SSG members either have it, or these collaterals are in any way on their name, as per the largely because of the way our society is and how patriarchal we are. The third challenge is that the entrepreneurship beyond a point reaches a particular limit, partly from the lack of mentoring, the lack of business understanding, and also lack of skills to move to the next level. So these are some of the common challenges that you will see most women micro enterprise face, apart from funding, apart from the skills, and the general bit. But there have been cases of very, very good and successful enterprises, and I'll talk about a few of them. Okhai, for example, is not a Tata Power initiative, but it's a Tata Chemical initiative of women SSGs who have been able to create a global brand of garments and artisans. We have a similar brand in Tata Power called Dhaga, which is modeled around helping artisans and women SSGs from tribal area. Uh, it covers almost close to 1,200 women in 16 locations, and they now also sell, like Okhai, their products on an e-com website called saheliworld.org. So as we provide them more and more avenues to connect directly with the market, uh, we have seen a tendency that these women do very well, and enterprises tend to flourish more when they get direct access to the market. So that is one realization. Secondly, the market linkage to these enterprises is very, very critical, and that's where they need help from sustainability point of view. So getting them market linkages offline, on bulk supply. So for instance, for Dhaga, what we did right in the first 3 years of Dhaga going live was that we connected it to recurring orders from Taj, where they made aprons, recurring order from Okhai, where they made kurtas, recurring order of embroidery from Okhai in certain areas. And those kept them going while they were further skilled and made to move to the next level. The second women-led micro enterprise, which has flourished quite a bit in the country, is a dairy, because you don't lose money in dairy. We've set up an all-women dairy in Marvel, and we've seen that women women are the one in the rural areas who take care of the animals, actually. So whether it is taking care of the animals, feeding them, or milking them, all of that is their job. So inherently, they are the ones who are running this part from the as you call it, behind the scenes. So we brought them at the front, got this dairy farm, set up. This is the second largest dairy in the country. It's doing, quite well. It's a good model. It's a solid model. And therefore, we've seen that in any enterprise where rather than rather than having a small vision, when you have a vision to go national, go global, is where women and micro enterprises flourish. And from time to time, getting them the right market linkage, the right connectivity, the right mentoring, the right people to sort of help them to think of the next level is absolutely the need of the hour, apart from the funding and the collateral issues that they have.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear about Dhaga, Okhai, and Marvel, and how women entrepreneurs are scripting their own success stories in today's new age world. I wanted to understand, I mean, if you can have like some women, this challenges you faced.
So challenges actually, Dr. Bora, are tremendous. If you see over the last, I would say 10 years, there are a lot of SSGs which come up, like for mushroom, very small ones, which are localized in selling mushrooms, in taking care of the local animals for, like goatry and other things. But there the challenge is, they continue to be, because it's perishable goods that they're selling. Dhaga and Okhai, the examples that I gave you, they were largely non-perishable goods. The challenge that we see is that when there are agriculture producers which are perishable, when there are these special products which have a shelf life, is when the whole initiative gets localized, and the markets sort of get limited to these local markets. And that's where making an Okhai or making a Dhaga out of that initiative is hard. And you have to come to the terms with the fact that till one really combines it with something bigger, or connects them to a chain like a Nature's Basket or something, then the problem is that they are in very remote locations, very remote tribal locations. So how do you do that? So there is no, so it's largely, I've seen that in agriculture produce, in perishable goods, the SSGs which are there are the ones who face the issue of less growth, less market linkage, and less, I would say, connectivity to the markets.
Thanks, Shalini. Renika, I would like to ask you how increasing women access to capital can be the game changer, and how you think we can mainstream such successful models.
Thank you, Geeta, for having me over here. I have a little, I'm conscious of the time, I just have a little presentation where I can just talk about what we're doing. I've just built a narrative around that. If you allow me, I can share that over here, please.
Yes, please.
In the interest of time, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to skim through and not talk. First of all, am I audible? Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through too much of detail in this, because I had started looking at overall how we can build an inclusive growth, and what talking about women in economic empowerment as an absolute indicator to achieve gender equality and sustainable development. But whilst we're talking about, I just wanted to build and dovetail this with the work that we're doing. We're constantly working towards the rural sector. That's where we work. And we work within the rural India, in the hinterland, with women who are underprivileged. Here, of course, it talks about where exactly India's position is. So I would just leave that because I'm just conscious of the time. Just one particular fact over here is very worthwhile highlighting, that out of the total workforce in India, working population, we have less than a quarter of people, of a population who's actually participating in labor workforce, which is absolutely a telling factor, given the fact that there is another stats which says that if there is a 10% increase in women workforce, how it would increase the GDP of India to over $700 billion by 2025.
So all of that kind of really highlights the fact that this needs to be really concentrated on, and how we need to work towards it. Of course, I understand, and there is, we understand that there is a lot of players, and business has a role as well. The only thing I wanted to highlight over here was business has a role, and so does other players in the ecosystem. But in the rural sector where we are working, when we look at Schedule 7 activities, in the last few years where the CSR funds has been increasing, there's a lot of spend from allocation towards CSR by or corporates. But one of the things is there in areas of reducing inequalities, which I understand it's a wider term, there has been a decrease, and from the last 2017-18 to 18-19, there has been a decrease of 64%. Saying that, the area that I was just telling you that we work in, providing rural livelihoods for underprivileged women at their doorstep, and we also look at sensitizing them on gender rights. The next slide, which talks about, and this is the one that I really like to concentrate on, is our model and challenges. Of course, they go hand in hand. The way the models developed for our program Navya, which is providing livelihood to women, is starting at the grassroots level, formation of self-help groups. And when we say self-help groups, it's promotion of the savings mechanism in their head. That's where it starts from. And also familiarizing them with gender rights and women rights. From there, of course, the second thing which comes to is training them on income generation activities so that they become self-reliant. Whilst talking about that, we move on to how we have induced and how we have actually promoted this whole mechanism of interloaning, and also through the SHG model itself, and also help the SHGs to get loan through the banks. In fact, if I talk about numbers, we've managed to have the SHG linkage for over about 4 crores and up till now, and we've actually developed about over 1,000 SHGs as well. So that's something it's constantly we're working on, opening up the capital markets for them, opening up spaces, the mediums where they're able to access and have a better linkage in terms of loans as well. While saying, and also, I mean, of course, and less reliant on your usual traditional money lenders in the villages. So that's something we've been trying to shift away their thinking, and it's a transition, shift away their thinking from the more traditional approaches to these kind of approaches. The fourth area where we've consistently been working on is not just training them on livelihood opportunities, but also linking them with market. Because it's seen where it's fine, we provide them a platform, they start looking at self-help groups, join the self-help group, look at the interloaning model, look at how the SHG can actually receive loan grants or financial capital from the bank as well. But the one thing that's really critical and important is how do we ensure that their product is marketable? How do we ensure that their product has right quality assurance, and it is and providing that medium and channel as well. And that's something during the COVID times, what we've done is some of the SHG models, some of the SHG products to our women, we've tried to provide them an online portal as well, alongside doing some kind of quality certifications as well. The fifth area where we've looked at overall is how we can leverage and how we can support women in gaining access to a larger market in terms of, and gaining access to financial and opening it up for them, is formation of cooperatives. Here we have an agri-women cooperative and a credit cooperative society as well, which again helps the cooperatives to have access to a larger pool of resources, even have some kind of leverage and linkage from the government schemes as well, because that's where it comes handy in. Whilst we're talking about what is the kind of platform we've provided through our program, how we've reached out to the rural women, the one thing is, of course, I mean, not one thing, there are a few, but I would like to highlight only one over here. The challenges that we experience, of course, there's gender inequality, which the earlier speaker Shalini already mentioned, in terms of being a patriarchal society, which it is. It's an uphill task to get women to participate in the SHG groups as well. Caste is an issue, but one thing which is really, really critical over here and poses to be a key challenge is, whilst we are focusing on credit linkage, the linkages that we provide them is through the self-help groups. If we're providing them linkage through the self-help groups, is not through the person. Through the person, it's still difficult. So it's all those linkages come by way of the self-help groups. The other bit is, whilst we're looking at a larger picture in terms of what the government schemes are or the banks, all the target indicators talk about your cash credits, the percentage. There is very little conversation around there's very little conversation or very little information around what in terms of business development or financial literacy for women. So when we're looking at banks, it's more about financial products and promotion of that rather than looking at the ecosystem solutions. So that's one thing which is a challenge, and that's one thing which we always find that this needs to be looked at, because there is lack of financial equity or financial resources available for individual women. The risk-taking capacity for them also decreases, because they just feel that they will not be able to pay it back if it's not through the SHG, if it's not through a larger group. So that's one area where you see the businesses or the units, the livelihood units that we have started, we've initiated, it comes to a halting point where they do not grow. And that's where the dependency on CSR funds and corporate support continues. So it kind of becomes a vicious cycle, because for us, it is that we would like to work with women, with rural sector women, with a particular target audience. Once they're empowered, in terms of empowered, when we've provided them the platform, we move on to the next level where we can work with the second level or next level of our target audience. But it's just so happens that the dependency on the funds and the dependency on corporate support continues. So it's kind of, of course, we're looking at developing self-help groups, but it's just something that needs to be done a lot more in this area so that we can actually move out of the current structure. So that's the overall picture. That's all I'd like to just say about it.
Yeah, and this is a known fact. Women business owners still face greater barriers in obtaining capital than their male counterparts. Still, there are so many success stories of women-led micro, medium, and large enterprises that inspire us to do intervention that change the whole picture altogether. And Maya, we keep hearing financial literacy is must for women. And I want to ask you how it can truly empower women. And it will be great if you share some challenges faced and learning during your own interventions. Maya? We cannot hear you. If you can put yourself, yeah.
Thanks, Geeta. And both speakers before me, Shalini and Renika, have clearly emphasized, the importance of finance, in everybody's lives, and particularly, lives of women, who feel less empowered, who are wanting to do on their own, embrace livelihood opportunities, how there are so many hurdles which they have to encounter. And clearly, what you are asking me is in terms of, how financial inclusion, financial literacy can lead to empowering women. So if I really look at women's empowerment, as a topic, what I see is that, it's a fairly complex, multi-dimensional subject, if you really ask me, and there is no one single road. It involves aspects like economic empowerment, it involves political empowerment, social empowerment. So, it's among so many other things, I would say. I'm just highlighting, these three important aspects of empowerment. So when we at CRISIL sat down to brainstorm about what is that one idea, what is that one intervention which would really link at least some of these, if not all, in terms of empowering women. And we realized that financial inclusion is that one thread which connects, all of these, that is economic, political, and social empowerment. And as we researched this topic further, we kind of were convinced, more and more that financial inclusion and women's empowerment, have a very strong connect. In fact, if you look at the SDGs itself, this 7 out of 17 SDGs, clearly financial inclusion has been highlighted as one of the key facilitators for achieving those 7 SDGs. So that, Gita, clearly establishes the prominence or importance of financial inclusion. Okay, and if you really look at the overall situation in terms of financial inclusion or exclusion when it comes to women, there are a number of statistics available, and some of the large ones, including Women's World Banking or World Bank Findex, what they indicate is that globally over 1 billion women still continue to be financially excluded. Okay, so that's a large number, if you really look at it. And the other contradiction that I really find is that if you really look at it, women are categorized as savers. Okay, so they are categorized as savers, but because such large number of women lack access to financial tools, what we find is that they are often forced, compelled to hand over their earnings, hand over their income to the male members of the family, the head of the family, rather than saving it or investing it themselves. So that's a dichotomy. I mean, women today are earners, they are savers, but very seldom do they find completely in control of their finances. And that is something, that needs to get addressed, is what we realized. So we decided to focus on this aspect. But we also realized that, financial inclusion, while it is important, it's not enough. And that's the point that Renika also alluded to. Because what may happen is, financial inclusion will provide access. Okay, for example, it will create bank accounts. It will lead to a situation where majority of the women will have a bank account or access to insurance or something like that. But what if they really don't know how to operate it? Okay, they don't know how to use it, for their own benefit. Okay, when to deposit, when to withdraw, when to use funds or products like say recurring deposit account or fixed deposit kind of products. So if they don't really understand this, just inclusion per se, will not help. So along with inclusion, what they also need is financial literacy. And that is exactly then, we made as our area of focus. And CRISIL's flagship program, it is called Main Pragati. So what Main Pragati does is it focuses on financial literacy and financial inclusion. So we currently, we started this program in 2015. We divided it in 2 phases. So 2015 to 17 was one phase, and 18 to 20 was phase 2, which is also now concluding. And we are implementing this across close to 1,500 villages in states of Assam and Rajasthan. So what's the focus area of Main Pragati is that, we build capability or capacity of these women, to make financial decisions independently and confidently. Because what it really entails is, talking about or making or building the understanding of these women about important personal financial concepts, I would say, such as income, expense, budgeting for the household, understanding, where the money goes, how much money comes into the household, how to set small financial goals, how to create a plan to achieve those, etc. So that is what, Main Pragati, the financial literacy sessions, really talk about. Also some of the precautions, like, why not to share some sensitive information like your account numbers, your ATM card pins, etc., because women are quite gullible, and they can be taken for a ride. So all of this information is packaged into the literacy sessions. We also facilitate the linkages to various relevant financial products and services like health insurance, life insurance. I mean, these are really important for them and their households. And when we do all of this, actually, we achieve this through a cadre of women leaders who are trained from within the communities. So for example, we currently are present in 1600 villages. We have about 800 women leaders from these villages whom we have trained as Sakhis. And they are the ones who are building this awareness. They are the ones who are providing support to these community members on an ongoing basis. So over these, 4 or 5 years that, we have really expanded into these communities, what these Sakhis have been able to achieve is an outreach of about 4.5 lakh women across these villages. And of these 4.5 lakh women, almost they have been able to facilitate linkages to various financial services, products, and government schemes to about 2.5 lakh women. So if you convert the benefit, of what they have been able to create into financial number, the financial value of all these benefits almost translates to 100 crore rupees today, Geeta. So that's the amount of financial value, economic value these Sakhis have been able to create. Rinika and Shalini, Rinika particularly now and Shalini when we connected for the prep session, alluded to very important point about making it sustainable, because CSR cannot keep on supporting initiatives, for years together. So what we did was that sustaining this cadre of Sakhis was always the top priority for us. So what we have done is these 800 Sakhis that we have made them financially independent. We have made them self-sufficient because we have created a service fee model. So they charge a small service fee for all the services that they render to the community members. And the community also is more than willing to pay them because they see value in the services which they get from these Sakhis. So over a period of, last 2 or 3 years since we have built in the financial sustainability, today if you see, these Sakhis on an average are earning a monthly income of somewhere around, 1,800 to 2,000 rupees, which I would say, I mean the income generated, the cumulative income that our Sakhis have earned itself, is more than, I would say, a couple of crores. So that's the kind of, so we have been able to create micro entrepreneurs, in the form of these Sakhis. Out of, the May Pragati beneficiaries themselves, there are several women who have embraced livelihoods. They have started their own micro enterprises, particularly in Assam, which is a handloom rich state. They have started weaving enterprises, sericulture, airy silkworm rearing activities, and these are the kind of activities our women have started. So that's not all. In fact, in 2018, if I'm not wrong, 2018, Assam had they had the panchayat elections, and at that time the Sakhi number in Assam was somewhere close to 400, little less than 400. So at that time, out of these close to 400 Sakhis, 48 Sakhis on their own decided to contest the panchayat elections. And 14 out of these 48 Sakhis actually won the seat, at panchayat. So clearly there is also an evidence of how, financial literacy, inclusion, empowerment is also leading to political empowerment. So clearly, financial inclusion, to answer your question, Geeta, is leading to overall sense of empowerment of women, in terms of economic empowerment and political empowerment. We find that, because these women are becoming more and more savvy in terms of undertaking digital transactions, they're getting more respect in their household. So it's no longer a man's domain. In fact, men in the household, are dependent on these women to facilitate a digital transaction. So clearly they have better voice, they have more respect in their households. So that's how, this overall Mai Pragati program is leading to excellent social impact. So clearly we have been able to establish proof of concept, and therefore we now want to take steps for mainstreaming it. We have already started working towards it. We have also alongside in the last couple of years run a successful pilot with under the aegis of Reserve Bank of India in 2 additional states of Maharashtra and Haryana, and there too this model has become quite successful. What we have done is, from a scale point of view, since building a successful Sakhi cadre is the key backbone, of Mai Pragati's success, we have captured all the best practices of building the Sakhi cadre into an online learning cum certification program. And the certification program also is now being tested with various NGO partners, with different CSR programs. And that's how, we are looking at mainstreaming it, scaling it. And our ambition now is to make it a pan-India program, compared to what it is currently present in 3-4 states. So, so that's how a successful financial inclusion literacy program leading to very clear outcomes of women empowerment. Also I talked about some thoughts in terms of how mainstreaming of a successful model can also be done. Very quickly to touch upon challenges. In fact, Renika has already covered a number of those challenges, but yes, a patriarchal society, lack of asset ownership, not having your titles, assets, not holding a title to your asset, is something, which is still a hurdle. Women not thinking big, not having access to credit is another challenge, and therefore some of these micro enterprises, are not able to scale. I mean, this is something which both Shalini and Renika have covered. But more importantly, the challenge, that I have found, Geeta, is, there is no convergence. There are so many people, addressing different parts of the problem. Okay, there is a state rural livelihood mission. There is a Ministry of Women and Child Development. Each one of them is trying to do different things, but if we just bring it all together and create a platform which builds a strong convergence model, I think it will lead to a disproportionate impact at scale. That so I think different stakeholders need to come together and create a national level financial inclusion mission where all these different stakeholders can be brought together for creating a much larger impact. That's the need of the hour.
Yeah, I agree with you, Maya. Financial literacy and financial inclusion actually in today's scenario can no longer be identified as an option. It's imperative for women to make them empowered. Last panelist is Sangeetha. So Sangeetha, going by all above what we discussed, how do you think CSR or business can be the catalyst in empowering women?
Yeah, thanks, Geeta. And it was really nice hearing the earlier panelists. And I think all of them have touched upon very important aspect of women empowerment, which is, market linkages, giving access to capital, and so on and so forth. So what I would like to do here, before I talk about CSR and how CSR could be a catalyst, I would like to take a step back and briefly talk about the ethos of the organization and how we see women empowerment as a very critical pillar of what we are trying to achieve in the community and how we have been, making stride in that journey. So at Diago, making a meaningful difference in the lives of people in our communities is actually embedded in our culture and in our philosophy. And we very strongly believe that no community can thrive and no progress can be sustained without the inclusion and equal participation of women. So hence, empowering women is a very, very critical component in the overall process of, realizing gender equality. So here I would also briefly like to mention the progress that Diageo India as an organization has made internally. So before going out in the community, what we are doing within the organization, because my earlier panelists have also talked about women's participation, low participation in the workforce. And hence it is important, I thought, to kind of highlight how as an organization we are growing in that space. 5 years back, the number of women employed in the organization were 7.5%, which have now increased to 19%. We have, 3 women in the executive council, and recently there has been a great success that we have achieved in the supply chain. If I particularly talk about the supply management team, which comprise of 600 management officials, we now have touch 100 numbers as far as women are concerned. So our supply management team comprise of 100 women, which are part of that strong 600 team member. So which means we have a very, the reason why I'm trying to talk about the organization is to talk about the culture that we have, where we are trying to create enabling environment within the organization and provide very supportive framework to the women which are part of our system. And that is what we do in the communities as well. We understand that there are many barriers these women face in the community, which I don't think we need to revisit those, which is access to finance, poor infrastructure, access to education and training. And what we do when we are actually looking at empowering women or designing our program, we conduct a research to understand which are those barriers. Is it actually, access to market linkages where there is an impediment, or is it some skills that they are lacking? Basis that the programs are designed, and then we take an approach of advocating for gender equality in a broader society. As part of our inclusive community program, our approach to women empowerment is actually two-pronged. One is through skills training and access to capital. So we can enable women to realize, their potential for better society and economy. Last month, we launched our vision for the next decade, which we call Society 2030. And Diageo globally set a target that 50% of our beneficiaries from the community programs are going to be women. Now, talking about our skilling program, we call it Learning for Life. And the reason why we have designed this program is it has a very synergetic approach to what we do as an organization and how we can leverage the linkages for the women who we are trying to empower. So this is around the program actually, kind of provide business and hospitality skills for both women and men. And the reason why business and hospitality skills, as I said, linkage is a big problem when it comes to empowerment programs. And since we have access to, to hotels, restaurants, or restaurants are small and big in nature, so we are in a position to provide those required linkages, provide livelihood opportunities once the women are actually trained in the hospitality or the business skills. And particularly we emphasize on business skills, considering what is required to run a business if you are on an entrepreneurial journey, whether it is through the SHGs and so on and so forth. So with partnership from NGOs, government institutes, and so on and so forth, we kind of designed this program. But we tried to, before we actually took this journey of moving into Learning for Life project and empowering women through hospitality skills, we have actually looked at the global and local scenario, which clearly talked about what are the barriers that women face in the hospitality sector. As we all know that globally women do 3 times the amount of unpaid work in home as compared to men, and these restricts the time that they have available to participate in any kind of training. Also perception regarding the safety and dignity in joining the hospitality sector is really low. Then we also looked at World Health Organization recommendation, which says that 1 in 3 women will have experienced violence and harassment in their lifetime in this sector, especially in the low income countries. Most of the women have I'm talking about the communities that we are working in, have very low business skills. So basis all these, we have designed these programs, and we are running, if I talk about the success of these programs, so to say, we have almost had about 98% of these women who have been trained through Learning for Life are working, employed, whether in 3-star or 5-star hotel chains, to name a few, like Marriott, Fortune, Lemon Tree, and so forth. And they're earning about an average 8,000 plus, as a salary. Then we also, as Shalini mentioned, there are other areas where women can actually, the agricultural space, where we are also doing mushroom cultivation program. Through SSGs, these programs are run, but when it comes to linkages, there are challenges that we have faced, but we are looking at how to overcome those. So largely our Learning for Life program is actually aimed at skill development and livelihood generation for women empowerment. If I talk about mainstreaming some of these models, if I actually have to look at it, and how to scale it, I think there are a few considerations these programs need to make, which is, of course, recruitment in these programs where we are trying to help these women is very low. Because of the cultural barriers that they face, and the traditional recruitment tools might not work in a case like this. Then the training timings poses a threat, because they have a responsibility during the daytime to look after the childcare responsibilities. Training format is something which is again very, very critical. Training location, how far is the training location for this women to be able to access this program easily? Content, family and community dynamics again are very important. Local requirement. In fact, if I actually look at the pandemic situation and how this entire ecosystem is affected, we were really very, very concerned to see whether we would be kind of take this initiative forward or not, and hence we have reached out to Sector Skill Council, had conversations, so that our program is not hampered, or our program is still able to help the community and the women empowerment journey that we have undertaken. We are able to continue. We're now accordingly going to kind of revamp the program, which says there are need for F&B service stewards, there are need for room attendant, front office attendant. These kind of opportunities are still in demand, and we can continue to train our women and provide employment opportunities. The other aspect that I talked about, apart from skilling and livelihood generation, access to capital. Our access to capital program is very much centered around our water intervention, where we are setting up community water purification plants, which are then handed over to women SHGs who run those, and it's an income generation, sustained income generation model for them, where they sell the water at a price of about 5 rupees for 20 liters. And on an average, the SHGs are able to earn about 30,000 per month, which they're using that money to scale up other programs that they're running. For example, they are into papad making, achar making, where at times they really run short of funds. And this program is an alternative income generation mode for these women to kind of scale up the programs that they have. So with these, and the outcomes, if I talk about our SSG model in the wash intervention that we have, it has not only actually improved access to water and sanitation and hygiene, but also health, well-being, participation in income generation activities, participation in community groups and leadership roles. Basically, in general, women's position in these communities have improved. Hence, I see CSR can play a very, very critical role in women empowerment through sustained support and through sustained mentoring, guidance, training, skilling, not only funds, but linkages, which are very, very important. So the organization which can leverage those for sustained income generation opportunities for women, I think I see a great potential for CSR to be able to do that.
Yes, Sangeetha, I mean, you really touched on thoughtful interventions which you are doing. There is one question from Serena. How are target women identified in the program? It is related to financial literacy. All they are rural or they can be urban women. What all financial tools? I mean, is it available for urban women also? So this question, I think Maya, you can answer. We just running out of time in
So thanks, Serena, for that question. And right now, my Pragati program is mainly focusing, for rural women. But we are, working towards an app, which will be relevant for sections, of women across both urban pockets as well as rural pockets. We are looking at launching it in early part of next calendar year. And once that app gets launched, women across the country in their own local languages will be able to access these financial learning modules, be it rural or urban.
Yeah, I'm so glad that in this panel discussion, we got so many examples of successful models and how we can mainstream them to make our big dream of empowering every woman and every girl. Thanks to all the panelists and everyone who joined and invested their time with us. Goodbye and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. It was
Thank
really,
you.
it was
Thank
really
you, Geeta.
part of this session. Thank you.
Thank you.